Anytime you want to go into the presence of a king, you have to have permission. If you think about Esther, one of the reasons why Esther did not want to go to the king is because she did not have an audience with him. It's going to be, that's why the physical version is going to be so important, because it will be more interactive. The physical version will be more interactive than the digital. This year is our year. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Amanda Nicole. I own a company called Freedom Through Divorce, and I create products for women of faith that want to deepen their relationship with God, more specifically after hard seasons. So today I want to bring you guys up to speed on where we are and what we're going to be doing going forward. So if you watched the first video for the year, you know that the goal for this year is to make $100,000 in profit in my business within 52 weeks. So I want to do kind of a little bit of a recap in terms of where we are with that goal and what we've accomplished and what we need to be doing going forward, so that I can make a plan in terms of what I'm going to be doing going forward. If you watched the first video, I'm going to put a list here on the screen of all the things that I had plans to do in order to transform the business. I didn't say this in that video, but my goal in terms of the $100,000 in 52 weeks, I kind of made a plan to say, okay, the first quarter of the year, I'm going to have to transform the business so that it can be the kind of business that can bring in that kind of revenue. And so I was never expecting to actually be bringing in anything until, April. And so, we did get, the Etsy sale, and we got, a divorce coaching client. So I did bring in some revenue, which I was not expecting. But in terms of bringing in profit, obviously I knew that it would take some time to transform the business. And so that's not something that I, am tracking right now. So I just want you guys to be aware of that, so that you don't think that I'm going to be like showing numbers or anything like that, because that's not where I'm at right now. So here are the things that I said I wanted to work on. Okay. Creating the business was at the top of the list. If we're going to make $100,000 in 52 weeks, we have to make sure the business is ready to handle that the business is creating products that are going to be sustainable long-term, that I can create quickly if I need to, and that are going to just really, combine who I am with the business. We talked about that. We talked about, making sure that I am making the dreams come true of the little girl version of me, if that makes sense. And so I wanted to make sure that I was transforming the business into something that, reflected me, my personality, what brings me joy, and those kinds of things. And so that is something that we were able to accomplish in January. I completely changed the messaging of the business in terms of speaking to who I want to target. And I also took a lot of the products that I felt like, weren't speaking to the core values of the business off of the website. And I also worked on developing new products. And so a part of that, you guys have been working with me on upgrading the packaging, because again, everything in the business needs to reflect the goal of the business, the mission of the business, and what I want the business to be. And so we talked about, I want everything to feel special and luxurious and doing the absolute most, because that's just that's my personality. And so I wanted to make sure that I was creating products along those lines and making sure that the packaging was a true experience and not just one-off products. And so we've been working on that, upgrading the business. I've upgraded, some things on the website, the wording. I've upgraded some of the products to make sure that they're a little bit more special, but also to make sure that they add more value. We talked about, adding the prompts to the back of the bookmark, so that if you don't know what to study, then you are able to use the back of the bookmark to have a prompt to say, hey, here's something to be thinking about, so that you can get more out of your Bible study experience. We created these purses up here so that the products that we had already developed weren't just, loose products, but that they would have something to go in that again upgrades the experience even more. So we've been making changes in the business so that it's not just, a small side hustle business, but it's a business that can sustain, bringing in $100,000 in profit. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to work on was consistency. I have been trying really, really hard to get out one video a week. And I have been able to do that, but I was late the last couple of weeks because of me being sick. But I have been able to be consistent and do one video a week, which is great. Pat myself on the back about that. The only thing is I do want to, as we move into, trying to meet that goal and trying to make sure I'm bringing in revenue as of April, I'm going to need to do more short form marketing content. The long form content is important, but I need to start, incorporating some more short form marketing content into how I'm doing things. And I need to start doing that now because I do not, and I repeat, do not have the hang of short form content. I just can't wrap my mind around how to make sure that it's, that it markets, instead of just being like a clip of a video I'm already doing. So I have to work on making specific content for short form as well as long forms, having some kind of schedule and consistency when it comes to short form content. So I'm going to be working on that, but I am being consistent with the long form, so that's something. So for January, I really heavily worked on upgrading the business and trying to be consistent. So we worked on those two things. So for February, I'm going to be working more on audience and marketing. Those two things are the two goals that I'm going to be trying to work on for February. And so I want to talk to you guys a little bit about what I plan to do with that. Okay. We talked about in the last video, the conversation that I had with God about the audience, my new audience, the audience that God wants me to speak to, right? So I talked to you guys about that, and I have been continuing that conversation with God, trying to ask him about what I was going to do. Because I told you guys I was going to be releasing some kind of free community, something to try to bring in that audience, but also to try to speak to that audience. And so I had in my mind an idea that I wanted to do for that community. But as I was starting to work on flushing that idea out, it was really one of the things that God has been working with me on is what he and I call staying in the vein of joy. And what that means is I have a tendency to get excited about something and then be obsessive over it, and then it sucks all the joy out of it, right? And so I have to work on being excited about something and being intentional about how I go about it so that I can keep that joy, right? And so that's one of the things that the Lord has been working with me on with this business. And because I've seen it with a lot of other creators and business owners where they start out really happy and excited and joyful, but it's not long before they burn out. And it's because they don't know how to stay in the vein of joy. And it just kind of, the business starts to, be successful and it just goes off the rails. And before they realize it, they wake up and they're like, I hate this. And I don't want that to happen with this business. And so that is a conversation that God and I have been having, is making sure that I am creating this business around what brings me joy so that when it begins to be successful, I am happy with what I'm doing every day, right? And so as I was beginning to develop out this, community or just space for that new audience, it was turning into toil. If you know what that means in the Old Testament, when Adam and Eve sinned, previously, before they sinned, they were able to do what God had called them to do and name the animals and just like be who God called them to be in a place of joy. And it was not, draining. They weren't having to toil and work hard and strive, right? But then after they sinned, that was one of the consequences, was that's what you're going to be doing. It was basically God telling them, you're going to have to grind now because you decided you wanted to do it your way instead of my way. And so one of the things that I'm constantly being aware of while I'm developing and creating and transforming this business is, am I still in the vein of joy, or have I moved over to toil? Anytime I recognize that I'm moving over to toil, I stop and I just take a step back and say, this is not working. Do we need to do something else, or do we need to change how we're doing this? So I was creating this community and it was toil. And I was like, okay, let me step back and say, why is this toil, right? What is the problem? And the problem was that I was trying to do too much at once. I wanted to create this big, huge community that had all of these resources, all of these teaching tools, all of these things where you was like, you walk into this smorgasbord of content and teaching tools and resources and things like that. And even though I was trying to be realistic with myself and say, all right, I have to start small, I still wasn't starting small enough. It was, because I had planned on having the community up before now, and it's still not up because I just kept running into toil. So I went back to the drawing board and said, okay, I need to figure out a way to do this because this is something that is important to God. And, because you guys, in the last video, this is a conversation that I had with God. And this is one of the things that God and I have been talking about is I have been really asking him, what is the problem? Why is this business not succeeding the way that I wanted to see, the way that I wanted to succeed? And why is it not making the money I wanted it to make and that kind of thing? And he was very clear that seek ye first the kingdom. I did a video on that. You guys know, we've been talking about that. And so what that means is if you are working on and zealous about what's important to God, he will be zealous about what's important to you. And so it's important to me that if, God wants to speak to this specific community, that I cannot spend months and months developing products that bring me joy, but then not doing anything with that community, because that's what is important to him. And if I'm expecting this business to succeed, I have to make what's important to him a priority over what's important to me. And so I had been working on the community, but it was like, I just wasn't getting anywhere, and it was toil. So I was like, all right, what we're going to do is we are going to stop doing what brings me joy in terms of developing products, right? For two reasons. One is because I felt like the products were not cohesive. And with that, what I mean is that, for example, let's take this purse, okay? The purse itself is absolutely something that brings me joy. I love the product. It is amazing. It's exactly what I wanted it to be, right? The products that go in it, there's no cohesion between the purse and the products, right? The purse is a Bible study tote. It's a Bible study bag, and it has Bible study products in it, but there's no cohesion, if that makes sense, right? There's no reason why you would have to have the purse with the products, if that makes sense. And so because of that, the next thing that I wanted to do in my business is I want to do a launch, right? I want to launch a signature product, right? Something that no one else is doing, something that is unique to me, my personality, what brings me joy, the gifts God has given me, all of those things. So not just any product, but something that is going to be a signature product and that is going to be worthy of an actual launch. You guys know I've worked on lots of products. I worked on this, which we haven't done a video on that yet, but I worked on this, and I worked on the purse, and I've worked on, the wallet. I've worked on all kinds of things. And I just put them up on the website. I haven't had an actual launch because I didn't feel like those products were worth a launch. And so even though I love them and I think that they're amazing products, when you do a launch, it needs to be something that you have something cohesive, right? If you're wanting to launch, you're wanting to do a collection, and you're wanting to build up hype, you're wanting to do marketing, you're wanting people to be excited about that thing. And so when you're doing one-off products, that's not a launch, right? That's not the same thing as a launch. And so I have been developing those products so that I can, get good at what I want and what I don't want. You guys have seen all of the product fails I've had, right? And we wanted to get all the kinks out of all of those before we start having a launch, because what a launch means that you are expecting a lot of orders and you don't want to be having problems with products while you're trying to have a launch, right? So it was important for us to do all of this product development, for us to create products, for us to upgrade products, all of those things, so that we could be prepared for a launch. So I want to do a launch. And so one of the reasons why I wanted to step back on the product creation is that I need to create a cohesive launch, right? And so I need to really look into what does that entail, right? Okay, so that was one of the reasons. And then the other reason was because the community was just not up. And I just felt like, okay, this is important to God. I have to get this community up. And for some reason, I'm not able to do both. And so if it has to be one or the other, we have to get this community up. And so I said, all right, I'm going to take a step back from the product development, and I'm going to just see what I can do to make sure that the community goes up, but that it's not toil, right? And so sure enough, when God says, if you are, make what's important to me a priority, I'll make what's important to you a priority. The minute I said, all right, I'm going to hold off on products and I'm going to focus on the community, the Lord gave me the way to do both, right? So that is what I'm going to do. So here is what I'm going to be doing. I'm so excited, you guys. Okay, so what I'm going to do is the community is going to be a monthly email club, right? And we're still wordsmithing that name. Okay, so don't hold me to the name. But what it's basically going to be is when I do my launch, I am going to launch an email course. And what it's going to be is you will sign up for the course and you will be emailed every week for 4 weeks, one video in the course. So the course will be 4 weeks and it will be one video. And what it will be is there will be a video on Monday. There will be a planner of here is all the work for the week and worksheets and all the things. And it will be completely free if you want the digital only version, right? So if you want to just watch the videos and you want to just have the worksheets and the everything that goes with it, and you just want to print it out at home, it will be completely free. You won't have to pay nothing. But if you want to have the course and the worksheets and everything in physical form, then that will be the paid part. And so that will be the launch. The launch will be the community / course. It will be 100% free if you want the digital version, but if you want the physical version, it will be paid. And so, but what it's going to do, it is going to speak to my target audience, right? Those people who want Jesus, that want a relationship with God, but want it outside of church and religion and all of the BS that normally goes along with it, right? With everything that's going on, there are so many people that are going to church, but they do not have a relationship with God. They don't know how to pray. They don't know how to pray and actually get their prayers answered. They don't know how to study or understand or read their scriptures. All of those things that people are going to church, but they don't have a relationship with God. So it will be teaching how to have a relationship with God, how to actually get to know Jesus, how to study scripture, how to basically, it's going to be, if Jesus were to teach you what's important about God and a relationship with him, this is what he would teach. Without all of the stuff that is just religious, that's just customary, that's just tradition, all of that stuff will be just taking out all of that fluff and getting right down to, this is what is important to God, and this is what I need to know, and that's it. So that is what the community is going to be about. And so every month we will be discussing a different aspect of that. And so the first month I'm going to start with the Lord's Prayer, but I'm going to start with it as this is what Jesus was saying, with the Lord's Prayer in terms of what was important to God when we pray. And it's going to be completely different than what anything else out there. I've already started working on it. I'm so excited about it. But what's important about this is that you guys know that I have been very adamant about, as part of this business, making the little girl version of myself happy. And you guys know that I talked about this in one of the previous videos, is that the little girl version of me, when I was about 8, I would pretend to be a teacher, and I would have invisible imaginary students, and I would make up worksheets for them, and I would pretend to get math problems right on some of them, pretend to get math problems wrong on some of them, and same thing with spelling and things like that. And I would pass out my little worksheets, and I would give the students time to do their work, and pick up the worksheets and grade them and all the things. And so I would teach classes to invisible students. That's what I did at 8 years old, right? And I always loved stationery, pens, pencils, markers, different kinds of paper, all those kinds of things. And so when the heart of this business is basically creating what would have been Disneyland for that little girl, right? And so when I thought back to that, I saw the important piece of it being the stationery, which was very important to me, and the teaching, which was also very important to me. But the thing that really brought little girl Amanda joy was creating the worksheets, and that being a part of the teaching experience. I loved the whole worksheet thing. I even remember when I was in kindergarten, I would rush through my work so that I would be able to help hand out the next worksheet. I always loved having a big stack of sheets that I could hand out. That was just heaven to me. And I loved seeing the different information that was on the worksheets, and that was just joy to me. And so whereas everybody else was rolling their eyes and hated to do homework because it was busy work, right? For me, I just liked worksheets. That was my thing. And so I even remember when I used to teach Sunday school, I used to teach a young adult class, and in every single class, I always made my own worksheets. And even when I homeschooled my daughter, when other parents were like, oh, well, what homeschool curriculum are you going to use? I would always just be like, nothing. I'm going to make my own. And so that's just always been who I am. I like making curriculums. I like making worksheets, and that's just a gift that I have. And so it's not going to just be, oh, we're going to have this course and I'm going to be teaching this class. It's going to be, I'm going to have custom worksheets that go along with it, and not just worksheets, but charts and graphs and worksheets and activities and just things that I know how to do that I know would enhance the experience and enhance the learning and make students want to know more. Because that is just one of the gifts that God has given me, is that I remember even when I used to teach young adults, we would have these elaborate room escape type situations that we would do to teach a specific Bible story. And I would create things like, a letter from magazine clippings, or something like that. So very unique things that, here's a clue over here that you need to figure out, but it was my version of a worksheet, right? And so it wasn't just, a typical worksheet that you would, see. It was something different and eclectic and hands-on, if that makes sense. And so that's what it's going to be. That's why the physical version is going to be so important, because it will be more interactive. The physical version will be more interactive than the digital version, because it will just be paper worksheets for the digital version, but the physical version will be hands-on, right? So I'm really excited about it, and I've already started on it, and that is going to be my first launch. Okay, so I'm going to be launching the very first course, and it's going to be a monthly thing. Every month we will be discussing something different. It will be a different package of worksheets. It will be a different experience. And so I will be creating a custom physical product that will be going along with that launch, and incorporating the products that I already have and making a cohesive collection based on that. So you guys are going to be coming along with me, and I'm going to be so excited. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to show you a clip of what I have so far for the first course, and we'll come back and chat. Our Father, meaning keep in mind that you are his son or daughter. But the next thing he is saying is, hallowed be your name. Okay, the name of God carries power, it carries identity, it carries truth, and it carries, who God is. And that name is the power behind your prayers being answered, right? It's the power behind it. It's the thing that makes for example, if I decide I want to go and pray to this notebook, there is no power behind this notebook to actually answer my prayers. I'm going to be wasting my breath. Okay. I could say what I want to say, but there is no power for this notebook to actually bring it to pass. The name of God is what brings our prayers to pass, right? So that's important. The reason why his name has to be treated as holy and being not taken lightly is because that name is what answers prayers. So we don't want to be asking for stuff that's not reflective of the truth and the character and the identity of that name. Because what you're doing is you're coming to the presence of God with a request that he shouldn't be signing off on. See this with Jesus. If you review those scriptures of those times where Jesus is praying, he is not just asking for stuff, because his name alone already implies those things. It already implies that he's a God that wants us to be in health. He's a God that provides for us. It already implies those things. And so our prayers are not about those things. Our prayers are about bringing forth what is important to God to the earth. In heaven, the culture of heaven, the way things work, the kingdom is God's form of government. It's the way that he rules and reigns in a way that makes heaven heaven, right? Heaven is not heaven just because it's a great place and it's beautiful and all those things. It's heaven because he reigns and rules and makes it that way. He is teaching kingdom because God's people don't know anything about it. They lost it so long ago. They don't even know that that's what they're supposed to be doing. So that is an example of what we're going to be talking about in this course. So I'm so excited. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to work on the first worksheet just so you guys can see an example of what I'm trying to accomplish, so that you guys will know what we're going to be working on going forward. So my plan here was to do like a Lord's Prayer dissection, if that makes sense, where I would take a section of the Lord's Prayer and translate that into what is actually happening, what Jesus is actually saying, and have that be kind of like a infographic, right? So that as I'm talking, the students have something to look over that kind of reinforces what I'm trying to say and kind of makes it to where they have something to look. Because I've learned that as a teacher, it's just important if your students have something to look at while you're talking, they are going to retain it better. If they're just sitting there watching you talk, their brain is their mind is roaming around. They're thinking about other stuff, and they are not paying you any attention, and they are losing so much of what you're saying, and they're not retaining it. But if they have a worksheet to look at, to follow along with, then you're more likely to have them actually paying attention and engaged. So every time I have a video, I want there to be worksheets to help with engagement. And there'll be other things too, but that's one of the main things I want to have for every video. So for this particular video, we're going to be talking about the Lord's Prayer. And what I'm going to be doing is each video is going to take a section and talk about it. And then so that the worksheets will compound. And then at the end, I'll put them all together, if that makes sense. So that's what I wanted to have. Is I wanted to have something that's going to dissect each one, that's going to give a quick little, 1 to 2 sentence summary about what Jesus is talking about, but then also expand and give like a whole paragraph about it that, kind of reiterate some of the things I'm talking about in the video. So that was my goal. So this is what I actually created. The final worksheet that I'm going to be using for week 1. Now, remember, I will be creating a set of worksheets that will go with each video each week. So there will be worksheets that we're creating for the first week, and then each week we'll be creating additional worksheets. And so this is just one of the worksheets that we're going to have for week 1. And so as going forward in the next couple of videos, I'll be showing you guys clips of the video that I'm going to have for that week, and then also worksheets that we're going to be working on. So it's going to be very exciting. And I'm also going to be taking you guys along on the journey on how I'm going to be transforming the products so that we can create a cohesive collection. So my goal right now is I would like to launch in March, but I would like to launch at the end of February, but have the course videos start in March. So there will be the 4 weeks of March would be when the videos go out. So the launch would be February, so that you're able to, the ones that order physical products are able to get those products and be ready to learn by the time the videos start to come out. If that makes sense. So I'm super excited about it, and you guys are going to come along with me on the journey. So that is where we are right now. Is I need to work on audience creation, and I need to work on marketing. And so I'm going to be working on trying to learn this whole short form content thing. And I'm going to be working on creating this audience and getting ready for the launch. So I'm very excited. You guys are going to be coming along with me, and we are going to be creating new products, but worksheets, and also figuring out how to put those products in a collection, right? And to take those worksheets and actually make them be physical products. And so I'm excited about it. You guys are going to come along with me on the journey. I have no earthly idea how I'm going to do it, but we're going to do it together. So thank you guys so much for watching. I can't wait to take you along on this journey. In the meantime, I will see you next time. God bless you on your journey to freedom.